We have to talk about my mom's reaction to that sign.
It was Thanksgiving weekend. We went to ACD's parents' house, and next door there was a yard sign.
You've seen it. It's the classic, like, generic lib. In this house, we believe that, and it's like, love wins, Black Lives Matter, science, all those things. And my mom took it very personally because my dad was like talking to the neighbor and whatever and trying to make friends, which is not like my dad. And so my mom's like, oh, like he's having a conversation. And then starts talking about like, with that guy who tells me what to do with my money and thinks that I specifically hate gay people, and I never said that. And she takes, like, she's taken, like, all these, like, you know, generic lib things on the sign as, like, things that the neighbor personally thinks that she does not believe because she's a Trump supporter, and the neighbor doesn't even know.
The neighbor has no fucking idea.
Has no idea this conversation is happening, has no idea.
The neighbor, correct me if I'm wrong, never talked to your mom, never been in your house.
No.
Just has a yard sign. I started saying, like, to me, the yard sign looks like it's kind of echoing the dynamics of the B-52's classic Love Shack, because the sign says, stay away, fools, because love rules at the neighbor's house.
It's a dumb joke.
Your mom liked it.
That sounded like your mom liked it.
Your mom, well, she did, though.
I also want to talk about the performance that we saw last night.
Oh, yeah.
We saw like a Christmas show, orchestral Christmas music. Most of it is not singing.
No.
And at the very end of Good King Wenceslas, which, who is that? I still don't know. I was raised Catholic and I don't know.
Yeah.
But they, at like the very end, they just the two guys on stage decide to sing a few bars.
Yeah.
And then when it said brightly shone the moon that night, you have to do so. I'll explain it, and then Peter will demonstrate what happened. They had the microphone together, and then for that line, one of the singers like took the mic and like made a motion like shone the moon, and like wanted to make it like really cool. And then the song like cut and end. Like, it was like a bright light, and then it ended.
And the point was that he wanted they were going to sing the line, and it was going to fade out. Like, but he vastly overestimated the capability of the mic to do this. And and about right here, it just completely lost his voice. I'll stand up and do it. So, this is what he wanted it to be. He wanted it to be, oh, but it was, oh. The mic just dropped his voice after getting a foot away from his face.
It was like a 2.5 hour, really impressive show. And like, we had notes. There were things about it that we had notes on. But we were lying in bed after we had traveled home. And like, I just brought up, hey, remember like in the Good King Wenceslas bit when they did that shit? And we were both like,
no, and I literally like finished your sentence on it.
It was clear that like
we both really honed in on it and thought about it.
We were perseverating on it since, and did not stop thinking about it for the next 24 hours.
Anyway, the sign says, stay away, fools, because love rules at the net. Tighten your buttholes. It's time for Packed. I'm the P, Peter Coffin. The lovely Miss Astronaut Cowboy Doctor ACD is here. Together, we are packed.
Doesn't Peter look cute today?
Oh, thank you. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast service. Also, leave us a glowing review on Audible and Apple Podcasts. I'm serious. Don't delay on that. We require it. We are a 5-star podcast.
Not 3, not 4, 5. I'm a 5-star man.
Help us keep the lights on by becoming a patron at patreon.com/PACTPod. That's PACDPOD. Your monthly support gets you into our Discord server. It gets you exclusive content, and you see some content before anyone else. For instance, my upcoming Representation Matters documentary will be available for all of the patrons before anyone else. We've also got some fantastic pack merch available as well. Finally, tell your friends. We rely so big on word of mouth. We stream 7 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. However, in December, it's going to be every Sunday. So jot that down. Thank you very much for tuning in. Funky Little Shack.
Let's talk.
Funky Little Shack.
Let's talk about conspiracy theories.
Yeah, so conspiracy theories. You might remember about a year ago, there was this chart that went viral on Twitter that sort of categorized the various stages of maliciousness or
levels of danger,
maleficence,
and inherent to belief in certain conspiracies. And it was an upside down pyramid in which we're moving from reality to detached to reality. And the further you go up, you're increasingly detached from reality if you believe these things.
And the more detached from reality you are, the more anti-Semitic you are, apparently.
Yeah. The reason for that is because of a lot of the things that are detached from reality are anti-Semitic or white supremacist beliefs. I will say, though, the most important thing that I want to have everybody take home from this is that whether it's the year 2020 or year 2021, believing that 9/11 was an inside job is closer to reality than George Soros funding things.
Just George Soros being a person.
Existing. That the
George
chart
Soros
says, if you believe, fill in blank, George Soros, you are anti-Semitic past the point of no return.
Yeah.
Even he basically lists the color revolutions that he has funded.
Yeah.
On his public website. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the details of what is included in this chart, why there are 2 iterations, what changed from the first to the second, and why that's weird. But first, let's talk about what a conspiracy is.
Probably the most important thing going in, understanding what people mean when they say conspiracy. Now, if we're talking about conspiracy as a legal term, in the United States, a conspiracy is an agreement of 2 or more people to commit a crime or to accomplish a legal end through illegal actions. This is fully like a legal system definition of the word. That's not usually how people use the word, though. We're more talking about, in terms of like a mainstream usage, conspiracy theories. And according to the Oxford English Dictionary, a conspiracy theory is a belief that some covert but influential organization is responsible for a circumstance or an event.
Pretty neutral definition.
Yeah, pretty neutral. Basically, it's saying like a lot of true things are conspiracy theories. That is not a pejorative, so to speak. That's
not immediately saying that something is untrue or anti-Semitic.
Or anti-Semitic, yeah. Now, Urban Dictionary, where you go for the real definitions of words, says a conspiracy theory is an alternative explanation of an event or situation that differs from the narrative of mainstream media, history books, and other means. So, alternative facts is basically what Urban Dictionary.
Contrary to the ruling class narrative.
Well, the ruling class narrative is the only real narrative, okay? Understanding that there are, a couple of different definitions of this word that are entirely valid, and B, that a lot of different people use them in different ways, particularly in understanding that when a liberal is using it, they're saying something that contradicts the official narrative of that thing and is therefore bullshit because the official narrative cannot be questioned. Thank you very much.
And what I think is very, very important to emphasize before we get into this is in this chart, in both the iterations of the chart in 2020 and 2021, the author places things next to each other that are batshit crazy, patently false, and or incredibly bigoted, anti-Semitic, white supremacist beliefs. And those are there. And then they're put on the same level as things that are just true. Or even a basic understanding of how late-stage capitalism works. And that's a huge fucking problem. And I think the author of this chart, is a researcher
of some kind,
of conspiracy theories or something like that. Abby Richards is a mis and disinformation researcher. So if this person is a fucking doctorate in this field, that's really bad news. For somebody who clearly cannot think with their interface with reality in a scientific way whatsoever, and is very much basing her theoretical framework of research on the neoliberal narrative.
Well, yeah, the core conceit of these charts is that the things that the U.S. state tells us are true, period.
What do we think the purpose is for her unleashing this in 2020, initially? 2020 really sucked. There was a lot of socio-political division in the current zeitgeist.
That was a new thing, though. That wasn't before 2020.
That wasn't before 2020.
We had harmony before 2020. COVID really fucked us up.
Shut the fuck up. All I'm saying is that it was further solidified by COVID, a culminated head of police brutality that is also, of course, not new. People started having questions on all sides, I think. And people on all sides were incredibly dissatisfied and not trusting in the mainstream narrative of what was happening. And so
I agree.
This woman, Abby Richard, took it upon herself to make this noble chart, substantiated on the idea that that's coming from one conservative right-wing side, and that's what she targets in this chart. But there was socio-political uproar in 2020, and I think that was the response to it.
Well, and that socio-political uproar also was against the establishment. For a liberal, somebody who buys into liberal ideology, hook, line, and sinker, somebody who believes in facts and science, and when I'm saying those things, I mean the fetishization of those things, the authority telling you what facts are and what science is. When somebody believes that kind of thing, there is a bit of an incentive, not just internally, but externally as well. Let's say you're talking about how everybody on Twitter or whatever site that you frequent has gone insane, and you're like, if only someone would make a goddamn infographic that makes it all simple. Like, that's the market incentive speaking.
That's the worst interpretation. The best is that there were people thinking untrue and unsafe things at the time, possibly to a higher degree. And so this noble woman made this conspiratorial chart in which she also conflated Nazi fascism with a basic understanding of our current economic system.
Yeah. So at the bottom of the conspiracy chart,
things that actually happened.
Yeah. Things that actually happen. It's uncontroversial stuff that is real, might sound kind of conspiracy-like, but isn't.
Right. So in 2020, we have Big Tobacco lying about cancer, Bohemian Club, COINTELPRO, FBI spied on John Lennon, MK Ultra, Nayira testimony, NSA mass surveillance, Operation Mockingbird, and Tuskegee. In 2021, we have hashtag Free Britney, which notably in the prior year was not in the category of things that actually happened. It was in the we have questions category, but in the 2021 version, it was moved to things that actually happened.
Because they freed Britney literally like a week before this chart.
Bohemian Club was removed. I guess that's something that they didn't find relevant to talk about anymore.
I guess.
Which gives us indication that things like this are created to generate, a spectacular media reaction rather than disseminate information, because things that are like less relevant, that are clearly still conspiratorial or clearly still true, just like aren't part of the chart anymore because they don't generate the controversy that helps disseminate kind of in a masturbatory manner this type of content.
Yeah, more or less stuff that you might expect to generate more conflict and therefore more discussion via argument.
Right. So that's the only thing that they removed. What was added was the Free Britney. They added big oil pushing climate disinfo, which that's very strange that that's like added this year. Like that is not a thing that just happened in 2021.
No, the study that we did an episode on, correct me if I'm wrong, was from 2018.
I think so.
The Harvard study that we covered.
Operation Paperclip.
Operation Paperclip, Nazi scientists in the U.S. and NASA. Again, that actually happened too. I didn't know it was called that. Operation
And then they
Paperclip.
added Watergate, which I have no idea why they added that.
They added Watergate to ground this more, I think. She said, you know what? We need some stuff that's like big and people know in the things that actually happen.
Yeah,
category.
because people aren't going to know what some of these things are, and this kind of like equates what we're talking about to Nixon.
Like you and I don't know what Operation Paperclip is, but we know what Watergate is. So we know that it's on the same level as Watergate because it's in the same level as Watergate.
Also, yeah, MK Ultra ended in 1972. Don't worry. Yeah. One interesting thing. They removed FBI spied on John Lennon and changed it to FBI spied on Martin Luther King.
Very interesting. Because obviously the FBI spied on both of those people.
Yeah, they spied on him and then murdered him.
Yeah, they did both of those.
They forgot to put that in there. And they didn't put the murder of Martin Luther King in one of the higher levels, even if they didn't think it was true.
Yeah.
Because that would piss some people off and that wouldn't look very woke of them.
True. It's true.
But it's fucking true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they didn't want to
I mean, they were sending fucking letters to him trying to get him to commit suicide, and they expect us to think he didn't kill him.
LBJ, like, that is horrifying.
It is. Like, if you've ever read that letter, it is
bone chilling. Anyway, shall we move on?
Yeah. Before you go, between these two sections, there is a little thing that says speculation line, indicating we're getting into areas in which it may be a little more questionable what we're talking about here. It didn't actually happen, or maybe it did, but not like how we know it. There's questions that we have to ask about it. We have questions.
2020, hashtag Free Britney. Like we said before, in the 2020 version, it was in that we have questions area, and then when it turned out to be unequivocally true, they moved it.
What the fuck was that, by the way?
I don't know.
I just can't. It's so weird to me that they were like, this is a conspiracy theory of some kind. Like, no, it was somebody fighting their conservatorship.
Yeah. Area 51, Denver International Airport, Epstein didn't kill himself, JFK assassination, Marilyn Monroe, Princess Diana, Roswell, and UFOs. Things that were removed were Marilyn Monroe, Princess Diana, and Roswell.
Well, it's because they proved that Marilyn Monroe was fake.
They added, in 2021, Charles Manson being a CIA asset, Iran-Contra, Jimmy Hoffa disappearance, and we live in a simulation.
They added Iran-Contra. Her clarification, she says, I should clarify, I'm not saying Iran-Contra didn't happen. This was meant to imply we have questions about Reagan's involvement. That's why it's in the we have questions category. Sorry, that should have been more clear. What? You have questions regarding Reagan's involvement? What the fuck does that mean? Everything went through him. They destroyed papers that would have told us exactly the nature of his involvement. And so to me, that just says, duh. That's like going back to the Bay of Pigs and being like, we have questions about JFK's involvement.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't.
Charles Manson was a CIA asset. That was one that was...
There's a whole fucking book. A guy did a ton of research and really just undid a lot of the official narrative. There's a lot of omissions, etc. There's no like alternative hypothesis, so to speak, because tons of the people that he would have questioned are dead. But like a lot of the things don't add up is all.
After that level is false but harmless.
We're leaving reality now.
Leaving reality. Fucking strap in. Yeah, my mom, oh my God, if she saw this chart, she would fucking have to change her pants.
Sign says Greta Thunberg's a time traveler. So now that we've crossed the leaving reality line, we've moved into false but harmless. In 2020, the sign said alien abductions. Sorry. In 2020, the chart said alien abductions. Aliens built Stonehenge. Avril Lavigne was apparently replaced. Bigfoot.
These are all things that she's saying are not true.
Yes. Cryptids, which are other Bigfoot-like creatures. Crop circles. Elvis lives. Greta Thunberg is a time traveler.
I've never heard that.
Neither have I. Loch Ness Monster, which the Loch Ness Monster is a cryptid, by the way. So is Bigfoot is a cryptid. The Loch Ness Monster is a cryptid. Cryptid is like it's the group that they belong to. I don't know why. Mattress Firm is a harmless conspiracy theory. Prince Charles is a vampire. And the Beatles never existed. So the Beatles never existed is among those that they removed.
Apparently they found evidence that it's possible that the Beatles did not exist.
Oh, Loch Ness Monster, they removed. Clearly real. Bigfoot, clearly real as well. Removed.
And I think these are more things, other than the Beatles never existing because of the recent papers published in Nature.
About how the Beatles may have not existed.
Yeah. The other ones that they removed are probably just not able to be sensationalized.
No, I think they probably proved that aliens built Stonehenge.
Also that.
The ones that they added this go around were Kylie Jenner is a clone. Clone of whom?
I've never heard that one either.
I have not heard that one.
Obviously until doing this. Michael Jackson is still alive, which I thought was an older one.
Stevie Wonder isn't blind. That would cause arguments.
Yeah.
There's a market incentive to say that, as opposed to Bigfoot. Nobody cares about Bigfoot.
I like that Ted Cruz's Zodiac Killer is false but mostly harmless and intentionally added in 2021.
Yeah. They added that the Titanic never sank, that Tupac is alive in Serbia, and finally they added the conspiracy theory that the United States is itself a corporation.
They have a headquarters building, and everybody puts on their suits and say, I'm going to invest stock in the U.S. corporation. And they have their little briefcase, and they go in and open it and get on the U.S. corporation computer.
Yeah, they enter in their VPN password. I'm the chief financial officer at the United States of America.
Yeah.
So the idea that this is a popular conspiracy theory that desperately needs to be addressed in the mainstream, or people are going to be confused about how things work.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, if anyone thinks that, it's a tiny number of people. So the U.S. as a corporation, I think, stems from kind of being anti-capitalist, but not knowing anything.
How anything works. Yeah.
I think that, like, it's basically like baby's first anti-capitalism.
And what we think, to kind of placate this radical liberal anti-capitalist aesthetic while also making it look stupid.
Yeah.
And kind of straw manning what, like, a Marxist critique of a capitalist economic base on which the United States thrives works, and thereby undermining that.
I feel like last year, communists kind of had a go at her. And I feel a little bit like this is a bit of a straw man, and placing it lower on the chart is kind of like even being like, wow, it's just kind of dumb to be anti-capitalist.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it's false but harmless, right?
All right, let's get into the good shit.
All right. So this is where we start to get dangerous to ourselves and others. This is, by the way, in 2020, the line between these two sections is science denial, whereas here in 2021, it becomes reality denial, which is, I think, should give you some indication as to the viewpoint.
The dialectical movement of science becoming
just simple reality.
Stagnant.
So in 2020, the conspiracy chart put that as dangerous to yourself and others: 5G, anti-vaxxers, chemtrails, COVID-19 being made in a lab. This is where dinosaurs didn't exist because apparently you were dangerous to yourself if you didn't believe in dinosaurs.
This guy's so funny.
Essential oils cure all illnesses. Finland doesn't exist. Global warming is a hoax. Government-made diseases. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams, and soy boys.
Less harmful than believing George Soros is a billionaire that funds things.
Yeah. So the things that got removed here are really interesting.
Yeah.
They removed anti-vaxxers, and that does not appear on the chart anymore. It's gone from the chart entirely.
Yeah, it wasn't moved up or down to anything else. It's just gone.
Which is strange on account, if you like get onto Twitter right now and say, vaccines cause autism, or go on Twitter, say, the COVID vaccine is fake, it's a microchip, it's whatever, like just make up a thing to say about vaccines, and you're going to get attacked by a lot of people who call you a conspiracy nut.
Right.
So it's weird that they removed anti-vaxxers from the chart entirely, not moved it to a different part of the chart, removed it completely.
And we think that is because this woman probably realized the heterogeneity of the vaccine hesitant population of the United States. I'm not saying whether these concerns are valid, not valid, whatever. But recognizing, anti-vaxxers or people who are hesitant to get the vaccine aren't just white 30-year-old Karens.
Yeah.
Like bitching about their essential oils online, but a heterogeneous group of people, racially, ethnically, economically.
Skews towards people of color.
Yeah, health-wise, ability-wise, that having that there and framing it in such a way that dismisses those concerns can very easily be rendered racist, and I think should be, because there's many people who are vaccine hesitant have reasons, not saying that they're correct about their health beliefs, if those are the reasons why they're hesitant to get the vaccine, but they have those beliefs because of institutional abuse. Or their own, diversity in terms of, health or medical ability or religious beliefs.
There's more to it than just, Twitter account doesn't believe science.
Yeah.
The Tuskegee experiment. There's a reason why Black people might be vaccine hesitant based on the historical abuses that the U.S. government has perpetrated on them.
One of the things that they removed is government-made diseases, and we were trying to figure out why that was. The Tuskegee study is on things that actually happened in both versions of the charts, which, yes, it did. And it was funded by the USPHS and the CDC from either 30 or 40 something to 1972 for a long fucking time. And they were giving Black men syphilis. So we thought that is why in the 2021 version, or that's one of the reasons why there's just too much at least close to being the truth for government-made diseases, that they needed to take that off of the chart entirely. Relatedly, they added a lot of things, most notably that ivermectin cures COVID.
Now, keep your eyes on the wording. Ivermectin cures COVID, not treats COVID, not helps with COVID symptoms, cures COVID.
Yeah.
This is, in my opinion, a very lawyerly thing to do, because if you were to say treats COVID, you would have a body of scientific evidence to actually back you up on that.
Right. There were systematic reviews conducted.
There is actual promise that ivermectin treats COVID symptoms. Not cures, not...
With medium to large effect sizes, I think.
They also added ancient giant trees, which...
We have no idea what that is.
I don't want to know what that... I feel like if I find out what ancient giant trees is about, I will become dumber. Antifa did January 6th was added here. That makes you dangerous to yourself and others. Mm-hmm. There's... I don't know if you've watched the People's Bayonet video on January 6th. There is actually some evidence that like FBI plants and various people were involved.
The basic information that we know about January 6th is that there were conservative, would you call them NGOs, Boston-funded people to instigate.
Further than that, though, there's information beyond that. There were informants, FBI informants in the Proud Boys, in the Oath Keepers. And these were informants in the same way that there were informants in the Black Panther Party. People who were egging them on and planning things. Very interesting.
All right.
Anyway, the Iraqi dinar scam, which it's just like a Nigerian prince scam type thing. I don't understand how that's really even on here. It's not categorically even similar to any of these other things. Phantom time.
Another interesting thing that they did was change COVID was made in a lab to COVID is a bioweapon.
RFID tracking devices in bras, I guess to try to scare women away from wearing bras. I don't know, like, I don't know. The Wayfair trafficking thing was added to this.
This changed.
It got downgraded from the main event, world ruled by supreme elites, which is beyond a line that reads, the anti-Semitic point of no return. This is some intense shit here.
Let's start with, in 2020, we had cultural Marxism, adrenochrome, Antifa International starting wildfires, Bill Gates microchipping, celebs moisturized with children's foreskin, just deep state, flat earth, follow the white rabbit, George Soros, just the person.
Just George Soros.
Hollow Earth, Holocaust denial, Illuminati, Mars slave colony, moon landing faked, Nazis on the moon, New World Order, Obama birth certificate faked, Pizzagate, Protocols of the Elders of Zion, QAnon, Reptilian Overlord, Sandy Hook fake, Satanic cult panic, subliminal messages from ruling class on kids' TV.
Wow.
Wayfair, and white genocide. So, ruling class affecting media information is put on the same level as white genocide happening.
Yeah.
Again, George Soros being a person also being more dangerous than believing 9/11 was an inside job.
Yeah, just mentioning George Soros for any reason makes you anti-Semitic.
So, here are some very interesting changes that they made. They changed Bill Gates microchipping to Bill Gates depopulation. Very convenient for all the degrowth shit that he's perpetuating in Africa.
Yeah.
In Africa, specifically.
Yeah. This is what's weird to me. Like, they're like, we really need to defend Bill Gates for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Last year is because they thought...
And George Soros.
Yeah, and George Soros. Last year is because he's microchipping. Now because it's depopulation. Like, Bill Gates is on record saying he's concerned about the population boom in Africa.
Yeah.
That is a thing he has said out loud on recordings, on podcasts, with Vox.
The most egregious one, I think, is So they changed subliminal messages from ruling class on kids' TV, which it's, by the way, not subliminal. It just is. The TV and media are ways through which, on a constant basis, ruling class ideology is disseminated. It is a basic understanding of base and superstructure. And that was, in 2020, labeled as being anti-Semitic beyond the point of no return.
Yeah.
They had to change that, though, to appear somewhat attached to reality themselves. They changed that one to Hollywood is turning your kids gay, which is obviously unhinged conservative
Yeah, exactly.
craziness.
But you can
that
see
they're equating with. Before, they labeled as the ruling class ideology is manifest in kids' media, which of course it is.
Yeah.
That's the culture, media culture that emerges from having a capitalistic economic system.
back in the 1980s, there was a law that you could not make television shows that were essentially advertisements for toys. That law was repealed during the Reagan administration. And we got shows like Transformers, which are just blatant advertisements for toys because that law was outlawed. That is very obviously the ruling class giving subliminal messages to kids on TV. And if you talk about that, interrogate it, look into it a little bit, you can find that that is absolutely true. Like, that's what television is. It's like messages that are intended to reinforce the current ideology of the world, either intentionally or not.
Yeah.
That are boosted by the people who own the airwaves, who own the production companies, who own all of this stuff, and feel whether it's validation or that it serves their agenda. That's repeated to everyone, not just kids. Now, is Hollywood turning your kids gay? No. But that's why they changed it to that, because it's very obviously a dumb conspiracy theory.
Right. And a conservative, bigoted one. That
Yes,
they can kind of
yeah.
dunk on.
Yes.
And equate conservative bigotry to a basic understanding of the contradictions of capitalism as manifest in what children consume, which is so fucking lazy.
It is lazy.
They took off celebs moisturizing with children's foreskin for some reason.
I don't know. I just don't. I don't even really know what to make of that one. Like, I feel like that is such a bizarre. It has.
I know that, like, I've heard rich people are pedophiles.
Notice that's not on here.
Yeah, but I think they're straw manning that with this, and they had to take that off. I don't know. Yeah,
I think they probably are straw man rich people are pedophiles. Because Pizzagate is on here on both years. Pizzagate, which is more or less like, while it might be exaggerated by the QAnon folks, is rooted in kind of something that's true, which is that Jeffrey Epstein was flying people back and forth to his island to fuck kids.
Yeah, but that's anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Rothschild Central Bank was added in 2021, and we had to look into this on a little bit. I guess the conspiracy theory is that the Rothschild family is an example, since their banking empire in the late 19th century beginning, of, according to anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists, of Jewish people manipulating money and the anti-Semitic
ruling
conspiracy
the world
theory
via finance.
Jews are ruling the world. That is a conspiracy theory, obviously.
But it's only that because bankers aren't exclusively Jews.
Yeah, it's only that because it's not that they're bad because they're Jewish. It's that they're bad because they're bankers.
Yeah. Yeah, and like
bankers are the center of finance capital, which is the consolidation of monopoly capitalism into finance capital in the form of banks that resembles interactions between countries, where our capital is consolidated.
And then finance capital is exported, so you can create the sub markets that create the super profits for the home market in imperialism. Like finance capital is more or less an utter necessity for capitalist imperialism.
Yes. Well, it is late stage capitalism.
Yeah. The Jewish faith, however, is not.
Yeah. The Jewish faith is not relevant to that.
Yeah. At all. Even a little.
Yeah. So they put that on there as, I mean, for what it is, an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. I don't know. Like, yes, I think that, like, if we're listing conspiracy theories and that's how people describe the Rothschild Central Bank, that would be an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. I'm also kind of suspicious about, is that why people are really criticizing them? Is there Jewish faith involved, or is it because they're bankers?
I tend to think that, like, the further back you go in history, the more likely people think it's Jews. I think nowadays people, like, I don't off the top of my head associate the Rothschilds with the Jewish faith. I think European banking dynasty. That's what I think.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think in doing that and not specifying, you know, what it should say is Rothschild Central Bank ruling the world due to their Jewish faith. That's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. But it just says the name of the banking dynasty.
Yeah.
Which is like, even if the bankers are Jewish, it's not anti-Semitic to be opposed to the finance capital that banks yield power over.
Yeah. Again.
And it is, in fact, the most anti-Semitic thing that you can do is conflate bankers and Jewish people to be necessarily the same.
Well, that's the thing that happens all the time. Whenever I say stuff, I always get, from time to time, people on Twitter calling me anti-Semitic for being anti-capitalist. When people say that, they're literally just saying, well, the reason why that's anti-Semitic is because the Jews are the capitalists. The Jews are the ruling class. The Jews are the bankers. And to be against them is to be anti-Semitic.
Then they just say the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories.
Yes. And like,
well, Jewish people are bankers and they're ruling the world. So
and it's like, well, and that's ultimately how that kind of the Rothschild Central Bank, not explicitly saying because they're Jewish rather than bankers, that's how that kind of thing is used to shut down that whole line of questioning. And the same thing goes for George Soros. Like, they didn't say George Soros rules the world or George Soros is plotting to take over the White House or some shit. They say George Soros, period. Yeah. Like, if you say anything about George Soros, including all of the things that George Soros acknowledges that he does, like fund color revolutions. Yeah, funding color revolutions, which are like CIA, various nonprofits, including George Soros. They all put tons of money into these NPOs in these little socialist countries to try to overthrow them. And they just like bombard the US with media coverage over how everybody hates the government in that place. We covered it in more depth in our Cuba episode.
What we want to sum up is, what are the ideological ramifications of this chart for ruling class people and for working class people? For working class people, it dismisses concerns or even like burgeoning indications of class consciousness. It dismisses those things and equates them with anti-Semitism, fascist apologia, and like crazy fucking shit like white genocide. It equates questions about billionaire funding with that and shuts that shit down and leaves working class people confused in the capitalist system that they're complicit in because they don't have an ideology to explain this that isn't being confronted, you know, for kind of inexplicable reasons, but enough to make you avoid something if you're going to be labeled or come off as or seem like you're behaving towards others or have beliefs about other people in a bigoted, hostile, or even in the aesthetics of radical liberalism a ruling class apologist or hegemonic ideology way, you get shut down when you might actually be waxing on class consciousness in some ways. As long as those types of things, or things that are like scientific findings that are published but contradict like the mainstream narrative, but
like the ivermectin thing.
Right, but they're burgeoning in evidence, that sort of thing. If you're going to be labeled or ostracized as somebody who's denying science, or somebody who's bigoted, or somebody who's a fascist, because those things are put onto levels that do indicate those types of beliefs, then you're shut down and complicit in the capitalist system, and you don't really have a way out, and you're not encouraged to. For the ruling class, it just sustains the class contradictions without being challenged through a lens that appears to be progressive and woke and caring about science and the evidence and whatever.
It's fun because the labor aristocracy / PMC / whatever, they get a nice little chart that tells them how to dismiss every little like question that comes up. Like you asked, what about George Soros funding X color revolution?
George Soros fund? Oh, that's anti-Semitic.
Oh.
Beyond no return.
Oh, so you're an anti-Semite? Like they have a chart that they can just print out, put up on their wall, and they don't have to think ever again. Like if somebody asks them a question that might make them think some, they just look up at the chart and it's like, oh, so you think bankers, you think that money, the world order, oh, anti-Semitic.
Right.
Like it's just match the words, basically.
And whether intentionally or not, no, we're not saying that like ruling class people or academics or whomever who subscribe to neoliberalism, the justifying ideology of capitalism, that they make this so they can refer to it in conversation. No, this is the product of neoliberalism working in academia and shutting down ideological counters to a neoliberal framework.
It's almost too smart to be on purpose. For somebody to come up with the plan, like we're going to make this chart and we're going to tell all of our neoliberal subjects that this is how you shut down any dissent, that's almost a little bit too convenient, too on the nose, too smart, too coordinated. The market makes this stuff happen. Like the incentive here is this person's a liberal. They want a handy-dandy chart for disregarding everybody who doesn't think that reality is real in their minds. Anybody who's contradicting reality is obviously dangerous, or at least like very gravely misinformed.
Right.
To them, like it just seems like something useful or an innovation even. There's a very good chance that this stuff is just people like doing what they think is helpful for each other.
Right.
Is this helpful for anyone though? No, because ultimately what they're advocating for in, squashing any kind of even like incorrect lines of questioning towards something where somebody sees something is wrong. And this ties into what we were saying last week about how people can tell that something is wrong, but they don't have the ability to understand, or they don't have the context to understand, or they don't have
the mechanism.
The
mechanism.
mechanism.
They don't have a theoretical understanding.
And they ask questions, and those questions like give them the wrong answers. Like Tucker Carlson will very often say something that sounds weirdly class conscious, and then he'll direct people towards something that's really garbage.
And this chart conflates wrong answers and right answers.
Yes, that is 100% it. And even like if you're doing science, not liberal fetish science, but science, you'll want to come across a few wrong answers because you want to be asking questions.
Yeah.
And in order to get to the right answers, sometimes you have to walk through the wrong ones. You have to learn about the wrong ones. You have to see how, the earth isn't actually flat.
Which, next to George Soros, just go to his fucking website and look at the color revolutions he funded.
Yeah, it's just, that's the thing that just fucking blows my goddamn mind. It's just how open George Soros is about literally like the lyrics of the System of a Down song that are like funding these brutal corporate dictators around the world. It's that. And rather than helping them actually do science, they ask the question, well, what is George Soros actually doing? Rather than, actually helping get to the bottom of that, this chart and these types of people that make these types of charts shut those people down and stoke resentments, and the working class splits. And these people, rather than find what George Soros is actually doing, just figure it's because he's a Jew and that Jews run the world in their minds.
Yeah, and then this chart obviously capitalizes on that confusion to make MLs the moderate wing of fascism.
Oh, Vosh, you piece of shit. That's all for today. Thanks again for watching or listening. This is Pact. I'm Peter. This is Miss Astronaut Cowboy Doctor. To help us out, click like, follow, subscribe, whatever. Leave us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Audible. To support us, become a patron at patreon.com/PactPod. That's PACDPOD. Thanks so much, everybody. We will see you next time.